In the Middle East, on one side, ships passing through the Red Sea near Yemen are being attacked, causing a global uproar in the shipping industry. On the other side, Iran has fired over 300 suicide drones and missiles at Israel. Whether it's Syria, Palestine, Iraq, or Yemen, we see deteriorating conditions in the Middle East every other day, and perhaps we will continue witnessing these conflicts throughout our lives. Apart from the Middle East, other countries like the USA, the United Kingdom, and Russia are also involved. But why is this happening? And why is all of this occurring in the Middle East? The Middle East has always been caught in a complex situation due to the presence of different people with their own interests. Sometimes they fight from one side, and sometimes from another, which only escalates the conflict instead of resolving it. What is the root cause or origin of these issues in the Middle East? To understand this properly, we need to go a century back, where all these issues began. Welcome back to Discover TV's videos. Viewers, it was the early 20th century when much of the Middle East, along with a large part of today's Europe, was under the control of the Ottoman Empire, also known as the Ottoman Sultanate. After ruling this entire region for 600 years, Muslims had become quite weak, and internal conflicts began to rise. Within the Ottoman Empire, many people of different religions, including Muslims, lived in their own regions or provinces, but these provinces were all part of the Ottoman Empire. In other words, no one had the freedom to create their own country. During this time, the British started to establish their hold over parts of the Middle East, including the UAE, southern Yemen, Bahrain, and Egypt. The British needed Egypt the most to establish their protectorate in India and the Middle East because they had connected the Red Sea with the Mediterranean Sea through a canal, which we now know as the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal was a very valuable asset for them, and it was located in Egypt, which is why the British needed Egypt the most. They made every possible effort to ensure that Egypt remained under their protection. Meanwhile, the British slowly made Oman and Kuwait their protectorates as well. A protectorate refers to states that are technically independent but under the protection and control of another country, in this case, the British. These actions by the British were not well received by the Ottoman Empire, which did not like the idea of someone from the other side of the world coming to rule over their territories. This was the time when the atmosphere of World War I was heating up.
In 1914, the Ottoman Empire decided to side with Imperial Germany against the British. On the other hand, the British and the French, who had created protectorates in the Arab countries, decided that they would defeat the Ottoman Empire in World War I and then divide their entire territory between themselves. In 1916, British and French diplomats Mark Sykes and Sykes-Picot made a secret treaty in which they divided the Ottoman Empire's lands between them. This treaty is known in history as the Sykes-Picot Agreement. The treaty decided that the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, northeastern Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait would directly become British colonies, while northeastern Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Jordan would become independent Arab states, but they would be called British protectorates. Turkey and Lebanon would become French colonies, while parts of Syria and Iraq would fall under French protectorates. Eastern Turkey would be controlled by the Russian Empire, and due to its significant religious importance, Palestine was declared as an international administration under the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Although the British and French had already divided the Middle East before World War I, the maps they created did not account for the tribes already living in those regions. In fact, the Ottoman Empire had divided these areas into provinces where people, though following different religions and practices, lived under the same Ottoman Empire umbrella with no permission to form separate nations. By merging these provinces, the British and French made a significant mistake, further complicating the region. Before World War I, the British had begun making promises to the Arabs, encouraging them to stand against the Ottoman Empire in exchange for the promise of an independent country. At the same time, the British made a promise to the Jews living in Europe who were not accepted anywhere in the world. They promised that if the Allies won World War I, the Jews would be given their own country in Palestine. To win World War I, the Allies needed oil, and the British had first discovered oil in Iran in 1908, though not in large quantities. For the war, they needed more oil for tanks, planes, vehicles, and other machinery. At that time, the United States was the biggest producer of oil, and the British did not want to depend on America for oil because the U.S. President Woodrow Wilson was opposed to empires and colonial systems, while the British and French had already planned to keep their colonies. Therefore, for oil, America was not a reliable option for the British, and they increased their hold in the Middle East, especially near Iran, where they saw potential oil reserves. Later, massive oil reserves were discovered there. After World War I ended and the Allies won, the victorious powers sat down and once again changed the borders of the Middle East.
The Ottoman Empire officially ended in 1922, and on October 29, 1923, a military officer named Mustafa Kemal Ataturk declared Turkey as a republic. The emerging Turkish government rebelled against foreign British influence and continued to fight against the Allies for the next years. The British and French military, already exhausted from World War I, struggled against the Turkish army, and eventually, they were forced to meet the Turkish government at the negotiating table, resulting in further changes to the Middle East borders. This meeting proved beneficial for Turkey, and finally, the map of the Middle East was drawn in ink, resembling today's Middle East. The Allies gave Turkey its territories, while the remaining parts of the Middle East were divided among themselves. The Ottoman provinces of Basra, Baghdad, and Mosul were combined and renamed as the Mandate for Mesopotamia, which later became Iraq. Although people from different religions and cultures lived in these provinces, they were merged without consideration, leading to serious internal instability in Iraq. The people of Mosul were Kurds, while Basra mainly had Shia Muslims, and Baghdad had mostly Sunni Muslims. After World War I, the British made Kuwait an official protectorate, separated from the Basra province, and kept it until 1960. However, since Kuwait was forcibly separated from Basra, Iraq considered it as part of its territory, which led to tensions between Iraq and Kuwait. In 1990, Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait over this claim. Although Iraq gained independence from the British, it remained fractured due to conflicts among Kurds, Sunni, and Shia factions. These internal divisions in Iraq's claim over Kuwait became a major source of tension. Similar mistakes were made in Lebanon and Syria as well. Lebanon was granted independence based on its Christian majority, while Sunni and Shia Arabs also made up a large portion of the population. Similarly, Syria had Christians, Sunni, Shia, and other religious groups. Yet these Ottoman provinces were merged together without proper consideration. In 1930, Turkey demanded the return of the Hatay province from the French, fearing that the Turkish government might ally with Nazi Germany. To avoid this, France gave Hatay to Turkey, causing new tensions between Syria and Turkey. Additionally, the Euphrates River, which starts in Turkey and flows through Syria into Iraq, gave Turkey the potential to block the river's water, increasing the chances of conflict between the three countries. In 1946, Syria gained independence from French colonial rule, but the process of independence was marked by disputes, including claims over Hatay and Lebanon. The division and merging of these regions without proper consideration created problems that remain unresolved to this day. At the same time, oil became a source of conflict, as it was discovered in regions already marked by religious and cultural divisions.